Okay, just a quick introduction before the main video begins. Just for those who might not know, I'm sure many people will. I'm going to refer you to a diagram in the book Hermetic by D.T. Morgan, where we have a lovely diagram here of the complete cycle of the moon, which if you look that up online, it will tell you that it's 29.5 and a bit days. Obviously that means it will fall out of sync with the solar calendar. That's not relevant here, but it's interesting and relevant to the book that I quote from quite a lot in the talk. So we begin with a dark moon, where the moon is symbolically black. There's no light, it's gone, it's dead. Thus, as we move past the quarter point up until the full moon, this can be likened to the followers of Horus, where we have our victory, if you like, but then the companions of Set start to get the upper hand and chaos ensues, the dimming of the light, and we move through the next quarter point until eventually we get to the day before the new moon, which is called the dark moon. So don't get that confused. I used to get that confused. That's the last sliver of the crescent before we move to the true new moon, the blackening, which that's just really useful to get that clear in your head before you begin listening. Cool, let's do it. Hello, Broderick Wallace here, and I want to talk to you. If you're interested in the artistic, the ritualistic, and the intuitive, and in many cases, especially as I speak about my thought process, the personal understanding of the ISIS band, I've found that making these videos, obviously time is a factor all the time, because we're all so busy and I have other things that I need to pour more time into. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and recreate parts of my thought process, along with selecting some images from my phone as I speak, and once I've got everything out that I'm prepared to share, and then I'll go back and edit it and perhaps cover up some things and bring in some new images or whatever I need to do. So let me have a little look at my photographs, because I did find a place to start. That's it. I have it in front of me now in the van. The ritual year in ancient Egypt. This is not the actual... Okay, well, talking of starts, I had to restart the video. It crashed for some reason. I hope that doesn't happen too often. So yeah, the ritual year in ancient Egypt by Morgan. And this will relate to the very end of the video as well, which is nice. So, great book, detailing the recreation of the extremely pre-pharaonic ancient Egyptian lunar calendar, using the later solar calendar as a guide, and looking for evidence and filling in the gaps, etc. And it's a really fascinating read, and I can vouch for its efficacy. I actually got to use that word. Isn't that lovely? So this is the first thing that I noticed in the start, before the real start. This is like a ritual liturgy to the moon god Khonsu, and this is carved into the walls of a temple at Karnak, commissioned by Cleopatra III. But it's just really these two lines specifically that jump out at me, and those are: I am Isis, and I will bind him. I am Osiris, the drowned who is bound. It goes on: save me from every danger, protect me, heal me, give me love, etc., etc. And that is also relevant, personally speaking, to my intuitions. Now we know that there's, like all things Hermetic, ancient Egyptian, occult, etc., you're working with fragments and the intuition, and it depends what system you're coming from. It depends who there's a lot that goes into the interpretation. So the idea is that back in the day, statues would be clothed, and this isn't too shocking because there are examples of clothed statues in obviously the Hindu tradition, and in other places across the world. This still goes on today. So imagine we have a statue of Isis and everything that comes along with that, who she is. And this is always a tricky issue, because something that always makes me smirk and sigh at the same time is every time you're reading about a god or a goddess, it's like, oh, she's the goddess of this and that, and it's like, oh my, what isn't she the goddess of? And then you move to a different goddess and you've got about 20 points of tally between that and the lot. And in the end, you sit there and you're like, it depends what book I pick up, it's going to inform me exactly what this goddess is all about. And it is goddess or god, etc., and it is that slippery. But there are a few key elements that seem to be at least mostly particular to a particular god or goddess. So I guess you start there in your mind. In a previous video, I linked Isis with the idea of divine providence. We know there's a resonance there with Mary from the Catholic tradition. It's a continuation, and we know that it must go back deeper and dark. Just pausing there for a moment because I saw another example of ridiculous driving from a black vehicle, ironically, dancing with death there. Where was I? Dancing with death. Let's pause for a moment, and I'm always very careful about what I share these days. Not because I think it's so radically important, because I'm aware of the ongoing cacophony and all the silliness, and I'm frightened to scroll down anymore. I don't want to. You know, you pass through stages perhaps of enthusiasm and research, and in the end you arrive at this place where you feel like you want to keep things special because of the amount of pollution that goes on. I don't want to add to that pollution. I want to keep things purposefully obscure and difficult, not in a way that excludes anyone who's really going to sit down and listen, but in a way of separating myself from that black tide of occultism. Black is a theme here. Anyway, back in the day when I was having my first few experiences with the landscape that I've talked about before in previous videos. There was one particular night where, in my dreams, a black cloth fell upon my face, and it carried with it every notion of death and mourning and sadness. That mourning, that sadness, we can see how that relates to the death of Osiris, that mourning for the loved one. The idea of Isis being dressed in black. Perhaps there's some link with Nuit and the night sky, and there is a particular passage that describes the stars upon the blackness. They bleed in and out of each other. This is unavoidable. Anyway, this sadness, this sense of mourning, seems to be key here, or at least it's another beginning. Right, are we recording? This constant cycle of death and rebirth is so appropriately annoying right now. Okay, so I have to repeat again that which was lost there. Unfortunately, there was a problem with the software. It didn't capture the last few minutes. Okay, I think that's good. I just want to paint an image here of a man wreathed in incense smoke. Just hold this, just stay with me, just paint this in your mind. Close your eyes. Sitting in the dark, tuning in and communicating you might say allowing Osiris to speak through him. If he was asked the question, how do we get anywhere in inverted commas, holding my fingers up here, in this game? How do we succeed at this game? The answer might be something like, you have to die. You have to leave the world. You have to go deep, deep underground. And within this primal womb, becoming like a seed, you will give birth to your resurrection, your regrowth. And eventually, as those shoots move up through the darkness and emerge back into the world, you will emerge back into the world renewed. You might say wiser. So we can see there's a moon theme going on here. This death and resurrection. And the Isis band as an aid to practice. Obviously it brings to mind the idea of the incubation chamber. So we can see that there is the essence of a black womb there, in the same way that we described Osiris underground, in the same way that the moon stands still for a while in its blackness in the new moon phase. Is the Isis band, or rather, can we somehow equate that to this liminal space of the new moon between death and rebirth? You imagine obviously the meditation process, the mystical efforts within the blackness of the incubation chamber. This not only leaving the world, but leaving the mind as well. So, coming back to this book again, The Ritual Year in Ancient Egypt. I'm looking right now at the picture on page 196 of the ceiling the astronomical ceiling in the Senmut tomb, and the book describes the theories and interpretation of. I'll put an image up on screen. Obviously, we have the the celestial pole there in the middle. We have various seasonal festivities marked all around. Of course, we have the bull being speared by Horus. Obviously, Horus and Set as the some major there, and a female figure above. Perhaps Reninitet or Selket. I know the two are exchangeable. Don't quote me on that exactly, but there is something in that. But what I can say specifically is these deities lined up to the left and right of Tawaret, the hippo goddess at the bottom, Ipet. On the left side, it's like we have the companions of Set, the darkening, and you'll see Set is actually the second in from the right on that side. And of course there aren't as many characters as actual checking we're recording, yes, as actual days either side of the two lunar halves, if you like. These are specific days marked out as festivals. So on the building, the light side of the moon, the first deity that we come to standing at the back of Tawaret, as the book points out, is Isis. So in this particular piece of art, Isis is associated with the new moon, the darkening, the womb, the chamber of rebirth. The book also goes to state that Osiris would usually be associated with this particular phase, this darkening, and the birth of their son Horus would be the time when obviously the next day, perhaps the next sunrise to sunset to memory, when the first inkling of the crescent is actually visible in the sky. And to bring it back to the processes of meditation as well, it's been stated before that the phases of the moon are very much like, as we breathe in, it's the light phase, and as we hold that breath in just for a few moments at the top, that's the full moon. That's obviously the intensity there. And the book does point out that Set would be equated with the intensity of the full moon there, just as the chaos sets in, right? And then we fall down, the breath is expired. As we move down through the dark half and we reach the bottom, the moment where we stop breathing before we take a breath again, in that incubation chamber, that dark womb, that is specifically this dark place before Horus is born again, and the process obviously repeats itself and continues. It's quite a beautiful image, and I think that if we bring all these ideas together with the blackness of the Isis band, there is a resonance there. You might say it's symbolic of rebirth through the balancing process of specifically the meditation, from my point of view, from where I'm coming from, and that divine providence as expressed through Isis. But however you want to frame that, with the mysticism and the symbology, I guess it's the idea that it is a strip of the dress or cloak of Isis upon the statue, And this will also bring me to another passage within the same book, which I'm going to pause and find that. So a particular festival day pointed out here, the 18th of July, Wagi, if it's pronounced that way. The importance of, obviously quoting here from the book, the importance of this feast is attested from many inscriptions, but sadly, other than its existence, very little is known of its ritual form. It was originally a movable lunar feast always occurring on the 18th lunar day. This was later transferred to the fixed festival calendar on the 18th day of the month of Thoth. It is attested from earliest times until its reform in the Ptolemaic period, in brackets 305 to 30 BCE, full stop, and a ping. One, and some more noises from my phone. One meaning of wag is to provision. Yes, provision. And the annual resupply of the tombs of one's ancestors was undoubtedly a large part of this solemn feast. It is a time of offering, especially of new linen for the benefit of the ancestors. An additional meaning of wag might be to whistle, and it is possible that the feast involves some form of chanting or keening to the departed souls. This antique feast is inevitably influenced by the cult of Osiris. Okay, this is the important bit here. The cult of Osiris, whose shrine at Abydos, and no doubt many a lesser shrine, needed resupply. The linen of previous years was torn into strips and taken by pilgrims as divine relics. These green or purple bandages, blah blah, you know, insert whatever colour you like. This is just one specific example and text here, much prized and are often referred to in inscriptions. So there is the idea here of the clothing of the statues taking on a magical power as a relic. So when the time came for the linen to be replaced, you know, people might have torn off strips and kept them as lucky charms and, you know, apotropaic talismans, etc. Oh no, we haven't finished with the ritual year in ancient Egypt yet by Mog Morgan. There is one other passage I wanted to include. The dead Osiris is the vanished moon. His day of embalmment is the day when the moon is never visible. But on the following day, Choyak 25, he shines forth from his temple at sunset, just as the crescent moon normally appears on the second day of the lunar month at sunset. If this be the resurrection of Osiris, which it certainly seems to be, since he wakes from his sleep and takes his place in the sky, then it is small wonder that Horus, son of Osiris, is born on the same lunar day on which his father is reborn. So yeah, through the love of Isis in the blackness of the womb, in the new moon, using a strip of her dress to mummify Osiris and resurrect him. Obviously there's the detail of the golden phallus, and you know, I think it changes in various temple descriptions, some of the details. Through this divine providence, on the same day, Osiris takes his place in the constellation of Orion, while Horus is reborn as in this particular case, as the first crescent moon after the dark period. In this month fell the feast of goddess Sekhmet, for which details are scanty. The gruesome Sekhmet there. Had to start the video again. It doesn't like it when I've got it open with gallery for some reason. I'll try and say that again. The benevolent Isis, depicted here with the throne upon her head. this idea of the throne, which the pharaoh, as Horus and Osiris, obviously Horus in life, Osiris in death, to me it's like the idea of support, comfort, a backdrop, you know, the grounding to reality itself, if you equate Isis with, you know, the higher principles of the goddess. But just bringing that idea of the supposed statue of Khafre. I'm one of these people that, so I feel a bit uneasy about the amateur inscriptions in some of these statues. But anyway, the Khafre statue of the pharaoh with the right hand as a fist and the left hand flat, this male and female balancing force. To me, this is, and to other people, is a meditative posture. Bring in the Isis band in a darkened room, and obviously with the notion of the breathing and the processes which transpire. Interesting word there coming up in the mind. It inspires me. I see how all of these aspects are breathed into this dark space in order to paint the picture of this process which leads to rebirth. I found some quotes online, and I mean, obviously if there's anything wrong here that anyone spots, let me know, but I assume that I can trust these websites. They seem quite competent. I have come across these quotes before, but it's not as if I've got the kind of photographic memory that will remember all the details and exactly where they're to be found, etc. But anyway, PGM 4154 285. Not sure how to pronounce that. Nephotes, Nephahotep, Ea, Konsu to Semeticos, something like that. Quote, crown yourself with dark ivy while the sun is in mid-heaven. At the 5th hour, and while looking upward, lie down naked on the linen and order your eyes to be completely covered with a black band and wrap yourself like a corpse, etc. So this is just one small fragment here. So there we have the idea of lying down like a corpse and engaging the imagination, blinded by the band, blinded in that blackness, in that womb-like state, to engage with the inner processes as they relate to the ritual resonance that is taking place. There's a sense of initiation there, but it's the proneness, it's the corpse posture, it's the blindfold that speaks to everything that we're putting together here. Reading from this section, art thou the unique great wick of the linen of Thoth? Art thou the byssus robe of Osiris, the divine drowned, woven by the hand of Isis, spun by the hand of Nephthys? Art thou the original band that was made for Osiris, Kentamenti? Art thou the great bandage with which Anubis put forth his hand to the body of Osiris, the mighty god? I have brought thee today, ho, thou wick, to cause the boy to look into thee, that thou mayest make reply to every matter concerning which I ask you today, blah, blah, etc., etc. And I believe I've found the particular place for that, perhaps in these images that I currently have up on screen. And that brings in the idea of Osiris the drowned as well. And this notion of water, not only how the moon affects the tides, how they move in and out, but how later on we see Mary, obviously the new Isis associated with water and the oceans, Stella Maris, all that kind of thing. Trouble is with links is that, especially the kind of people that are very good at perceiving links, we have to manage ourselves correctly, because we're very good at doing that. And it does relate a little bit, as I was speaking earlier, about all the attributes of these gods. There's so many of them, there's so many links that can be made. But sometimes, even though this does sound like a cop-out, there is something personal to be woven together there. That if it works, it works. But somehow, having that foot in the past, seeing the resonance, well, obviously this is really important, but of course, as we move forward, we do have to make decisions. It says here, interestingly, Isis and Bez also team up on 2 different spells in the PGM 72249 and blah 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 blah. You can see it on the screen. The latter of these starts, request for a dream oracle of Bez. On your left hand, draw Besa, for some reason it's Besa here, in the way shown to you below. Put around your hand a black cloth of Isis and go to sleep without giving answer to anyone. The remainder of the cloth wrapped around your neck. It goes on to say, it then carries on for another 50 or so, I assume, lines of drawing gods, shouting out Greek letters and plenty of sleep. Sleep, very important here, because as has been pointed out by many people, and of course Mog Morgan on his channel, there is this as above, so below thing, this idea of resonance and smaller cycles relating to a kind of meta game. When you go to sleep, you go to the underworld. You could say this is like a just, I mean, it's not exclusively Egyptian, but it is a very Egyptian way of looking at things, that as the sun dies in the west, that journey that it partakes through the underworld, on the other side of the earth, as we know, this is the dreamland. This is the realm of sleep. This is the underworld. This is where we face the demons. This is where things are sorted out. This is where we go through nightmares or receive wisdom, guidance, intuition, signs. And we are reborn. So just as we wake in the morning, we've actually experienced a miniature death. I was listening to Robert Sheldrake the other day actually say that he thinks that when you die, you enter a kind of dream. I think he's hit the nail right on the head. And the idea is, through these practices, to become as conscious as possible. To, as they say, meditation is preparation for death. It's preparation for that journey on the boat of Ra to who knows what. To be born with the imperishable ones, to be reborn. As a highest symbolic notion, perhaps there are different choices, different levels. Perhaps it's more than we, very likely is more than we can comprehend. But considering so many great minds have directed themselves towards this question, I would definitely trust in the ancient symbology as pointing the way most accurately. There's something of the stars in the process. From the website Via Serpentis here, Isis first appears in the pyramid texts, in brackets, circa 2350 to 2100 BCE, close brackets, where she is integral to the protection and funerary rites of the dead pharaoh through the spread of the Assyrian cult and the Heliopolitan cosmogony. Isis becomes one of the most venerated deities of the ancient world. As the mother of Horus, she nurtures and protects the living. As consort to Osiris, she rules the underworld and protects the dead. With one foot in each world, Isis navigates the rhythms of nature and is the patroness of healing and magic. Among her many names are Mistress of Magic, the Sorceress, Healer, Psychopomp, and She Who Initiates. A foot in both worlds. Something of the magpie comes to mind. From the same site, and I'm sure they won't mind me reading this because I'm literally advertising their website, and good on you, whoever put this together, thank you. Of particular interest regarding the Black of Isis is that her garments and those associated with her priests and idols were considered to be imbued with exceptional magical powers, as if made from the very fabric of the cosmos. In a spell titled Oracle to Kronos PGM for blah blah blah, you can see it on the screen. The practitioner is instructed to wear a garb of a priest of Isis as a protective measure, despite no other mention of her in the rite. Apuleius, a 2nd century writer and initiate into the mysteries of Isis, writes, "But what obsessed my gazing eyes by far the most was her pitch black cloak that shone with a dark glow. It was wrapped round her, passing from under the right arm, over the left shoulder, and fastened with a knot like the boss of a shield. Part of it fell down in pleated folds and swayed gracefully with knotted fringe around the hem. Upon the embroidered edges and over the whole surface sprinkled stars were burning, and in the centre a mid-month moon breathed forth her floating beams." Apuleius, Metamorphosis, book 11. Yeah. Anyway, it's just, I tell you what, those are some really quite beautiful words there. Upon the embroidered edges and over the whole surface sprinkled stars were burning. Sprinkled stars were burning. And in the centre, a mid-month moon breathed forth her floating beams. That shining full moon there. It's like the new moon is underneath the cloak, and the full moon shines without. Not surprisingly for the Hermetic magicians, carrying on the same website here, not surprisingly for the Hermetic magicians, the Black of Isis as a garment worn by the animated statue of the goddess would have been endowed with immense cosmic and spiritual power. Black of Isis in Dream Oracles. Dream Oracles are a class of spells found in the PGM designed to obtain prophetic messages from the spirit world while sleeping. Sorry, that's an error in the text. For the ancient Egyptians, the process of entering and navigating a meditative dream or trance state was equated with the journey through the underworld of the dead, as I was saying, also parallel with sleep there. Just as the sun entered the underworld as it set in the west, so the human soul would visit this realm as the body drifted into the darkness of sleep. Sorry, I was stealing your thunder there, you got to it. As the queen of the underworld, Isis's authority and influence naturally extended to this domain of dreams. For our purposes, we will examine PGM, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, we'll see if there's any useful text from the PGM here that we haven't read already. Yes, there is. Take a black of Isis, as described here, and put it around your hand. When you are almost awake, the god will come and speak to you, and he will not go away unless you wipe off your hand with spikenard or something of roses and smear the picture with the black of Isis. but the strip of cloth put around your neck so that he will not smite you. The next one we've read already. We have fragments here, so some of this is reconstructed within square brackets, as you can see on the screen. Over the lamp, your hand, and when you are almost awake, the god will come and speak to you and smear the picture with the black of Isis, put the strip of cloth, etc., etc. These spells instruct the practitioner to make a sigil or drawing of the oracular deity on their hand. Blah blah, the references there. The hand is then wrapped with the black of Isis, and the rest of the cloth is hung around the neck like a shawl. Blah blah blah. Oh, I don't think we really need to read that. Check out Via Serpentis if you want to read that on your own. It does say, though, interestingly, none of these dream oracles mention any invocation or prayer to the goddess, nor indeed is any specific mention of her name made outside the black of Isis, similar to the oracle to Kronos, PGM, blah, 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 blah. The power consecrated within the linen itself provides all the authority and protection necessary to interact with the spirit world. And there's two words there, the authority and interaction with the spirit world, which will actually bring me back to the beginning, which is kind of our end here, but it's not really the end, because there's gonna be another ending which I really want you to stick around for, if that makes any sense. It does go on to say how the idea of being blinded and how this enables one to look within or to see, the spirit world, how this is featured in other traditions, etc. Oh, there was an interesting passage here actually that relates to what we're saying. As the nights grow longer, the darkness increases, and the potency of the light is abated and subdued. Then among the gloomy rites which the priests perform, they shroud the gilded image of a crow with a black linen vestment, and display her as a sign of mourning for the goddess, insomuch as they regard both the cow and the earth as the image of Isis. And this is kept up for 4 days consecutively, beginning with the 17th of the month. The things mourned for are 4 in number. First, the departure and recession of the Nile. Second, the complete extinction of the north winds, as the south winds gain the upper hand. Third, the days growing shorter than the night. And, to crown all, the denudation of the earth together with the defoliation of the trees and shrubs at this time. So this is actually also linking in that idea of the dark moon period with the winter solstice. And when you think about it, they are 2 similar times. They are 2 very similar times. Reading, obviously there's, with different calendars in ancient Egypt and different starting points, because that is a question, where do you start? Obviously the rising of Sirius to mark the inundation, but another starting point would be the winter solstice. It kind of brings that to mind. And it's, I don't know, it's Isis is everywhere. Isis is everywhere. I don't think we need to there is actually one more passage that I'll read from this website that I remember, which was particularly lovely. Having a beard and wearing a coarse cloak does not make philosophers, nor does dressing in linen and shaving the hair make votaries of Isis. But the true votary of Isis is he who, when he has legitimately received what is set forth in the ceremonies connected with these gods, uses reason in investigating and in studying the truth contained therein. Plutarch, Moralia 3, blah blah, whatever. But anyway, what was leading us to our end before the real end was the idea of authority and contact. So, God, I hope this is recording. Yes, it is. So where does it really begin? It really begins with receiving your ISIS band, and then there's that memory of the priest, perhaps when you were, like a young boy in the school assembly, and the priest would come to visit, or you go to church on a Sunday, and you notice that it's similar to the sash of the priest or the vicar. It's like, obviously there's a continuation. Not only all of these concepts that I've woven together with the help of other people here and my own intuitions, but I do think that there is another key aspect, and that is the idea of authority. And if you don't give yourself that authority, no one will. Okay, let's move to the best part now. Right, now we're at the true end. It's the best bit. So if you're based in the UK, coming up just a few months now away from the uploading of this video, on the 21st of September 2024 in Oxford, the International Thelemic Symposium, organised by Ogdos and TVC. There you can see at the top, obviously created and put together by Mog and DT Morgan, who will be talking about Egyptian serpent power. You can see there we have various guests, ritual demonstration, social events, and yeah, it should be awesome. And full details, tickets and schedule now available on the website www.thelemicsymposium.co.uk, as seen on the screen, and I'll be there too, so it will be nice to say hi. But for now, I'll say bye.